In the previous video, we saw our protagonist beat up the third-grade villain in his group and gift some beast blood to his friend. If you haven't watched the earlier videos in this series, you can find the link in the description. Now, let's move on to the next chapter. In this world, the protagonist has brought forth a remarkable treasure, the blood of a fourth-grade beast. As they examine it, they marvel at its rarity and commend the protagonist for their generosity and kindness. Yifan, recognizing the noble character of these three individuals despite their earlier life-or-death struggle with the old man, is moved. He decides to offer even more items to Lu. He explains that, due to Lu's unique lineage, these items will be especially beneficial for his cultivation. Yifan assures Lu that if he needs anything further, he will assist him in acquiring it. Lu, overjoyed, eagerly inquires if he will also receive something beyond the blood. Shin steps in to clarify that what Lu is about to receive is even more valuable. She describes the screaming birds, which are notoriously difficult to capture due to their tendency to alert others of danger and their fierce combat abilities. Extracting their blood is already a challenge, and obtaining their hearts is nearly impossible. Moved by this gesture, Lu runs to the protagonist and embraces him, tears streaming down his face as he expresses his heartfelt gratitude. Yifan, though touched, playfully requests that Lu avoid getting snot on his clothes. Meanwhile, in the Contribution Hall's law enforcement division, Zhang is venting his frustrations about the protagonist. He accuses Yifan of assaulting him and disobeying orders. Zhang suggests that if the law enforcement division doesn't take action, their reputation will be tarnished. The elder, incredulous, demands that two guards find Yifan and bring him in for questioning. The guards set off on their mission, but Zhang follows them, hoping to influence the outcome. He offers them treasures in exchange for teaching Yifan a lesson. However, the guards express reluctance, stating that such small rewards are insufficient for the task. They also remind Zhang that during his test, he will have to consume a truth pill, which could further complicate matters. This is not within their control. Zhang says that since the two of them are powerful, they should be able to manage. He hands over a bit more treasure, saying that this is all he has at the moment, but when he returns to his residence, he will look for more. One of the guards takes the pouch and says it is heavy, asking if Zhang is sure he wants to give it to them. However, Zhang is determined and says that as long as they can teach Yifan a lesson, it will be a fair price. Zhang thinks he cannot let Yifan get away. He bets there are more valuable things in that storage ring. So the guards decide to accept. They show a fake truth pill and say that even if Zhang says nonsense in front of the elder, he won't be punished. Zhang then says he will be in their debt. At the protagonist's house he is cultivating. He thinks that now he should just close his eyes, calm down, hold his hands firmly, meditate, prostrations, and make a cradle with both hands. If he is diligent and not interrupted, all diseases will turn to dust. Suddenly, he uses the blood shield. This shield is the best defensive technique of the human race. It improves as the cultivator's cultivation improves and can defend against powerful attacks or even sudden blows and stealth attacks, making it worth practicing. This is undoubtedly the best item Yifan got from the old man's ring. He says the rest were just some nutritional elixirs. Then he goes to the land to get some fruits and vegetables to exchange at the Contribution Hall. At this moment, the guards kick down the protagonist's door. He asks who they are and what they want with him. They say they are from the law enforcement unit and inform Yifan that he assaulted someone outside the Contribution Hall, so he will have to go with them. Zhang thinks that the last thing the protagonist should have done is mess with him. The protagonist agrees and asks the guards to lead the way, as he indeed has to go to the Contribution Hall. The guard asks what Yifan has to do there. Yifan says that Zhang probably didn't mention it, but he has fourth-grade beast blood to turn into points, and it was precisely when Zhang tried to take it for himself that Yifan hit him. The guard questions Zhang about this, and Zhang asks them not to believe Yifan, as he doesn't know anything about it. Yifan the guard says they will know the whole truth when they take the truth pill. Zhang becomes frustrated at being cornered. He goes to the guards and says that after taking the spoils, he will split half with them, but the guard demands 80% for them, and Zhang. Despite his resentment, Zhang accepts this. The guard tells the protagonist that they must be impartial regarding the laws, and therefore, asks the protagonist to follow them. Yifan understands and, since he just finished training, asks for some time to clean himself up before going to the trial smelling bad. The protagonist asks the guards to go with him, so he can change clothes. The guard tells Yifan not to try anything funny with them. While heading to the protagonist, the guard tells Zhang to stay right there. Inside, one of the guards warns the protagonist again not to do anything, as Yifan is no match for the two guards. The protagonist acknowledges this and says he won't do anything, he will just change clothes calmly. Meanwhile, one of the guards tells the other that the room doesn't seem normal. The spiritual energy there is richer than that of the guards' quarters, who are inner disciples. They notice something on the floor, a carpet made of the divine grass dulu. Not only that, but a fong from a flame dog and a foot towel made from the feathers of the mythical divine beast of the northern region, the northern light golden eagle. They are shocked by this, and wonder how the protagonist obtained such rare treasures. Yifan, already prepared, pretends these are useless items to him. Things he uses daily. He even questions the guards if they are playing a prank on him. The protagonist hands a bag of medicinal bath to the guards and says they can keep it. Upon taking it, they realize these are extremely fine treasures that even the elders would struggle to obtain. One of the guards asks the other if he knows the protagonist's past, because if the protagonist really has all this and treats it as normal things, he must have a powerful background. Therefore, they decide not to offend the protagonist. Outside, Zhang wonders why the guards and the protagonist are taking so long. But shortly after, the guards come out and ask if Zhang waited too long. Zhang sees that the guards have the truth pill in hand and asks what they are trying to do. They respond that they will take him to the law enforcement hall. At the law enforcement hall, everything is clarified. Zhang explained that he wanted to escape the battle zone, take all the treasures for himself, and didn't like how Yifan was acting. So he planned for the protagonist to be punished out of pure revenge. Zhang did all this, and Yifan is completely innocent. Zhang fights back, but the truth pill is very powerful. The elder says there is nothing more to be said. Zhang is not a good leader and blamed the other disciples. Therefore, he will be punished with half salary for a year and 3 months, at the peak of self-reflection. Suddenly Zhang screams, pointing at the two guards. But before he says anything, the two guards slam his head to the ground. The guards inform the elder that they will take Zhang away immediately. The elder speaks to the protagonist and says he was rewarded for exchanging divine treasures. Therefore, the protagonist must go to the front of the hall and receive the 30,000 contribution points. Yifan and 2 others take Zhang away. The guards tell the protagonist that if he ever has any problems in the sacred land of the 5 elements in the future, he should ask for their help, and they will take care of things for him. Yifan says he will call if anything happens. With that, the guards leave with their pockets full, with treasures from both the protagonist and Zhang. Suddenly, a giant bag falls from above and lands on the two. Then, several blows are dealt to the guards. Someone was there in front of them. They take all the guards' treasures and run away. And of course, that person is the protagonist. The next day, at the martial arts pavilion of the sacred land of the 5 elements, the millionaire protagonist was there, asking to buy a peak-grade human martial art, the technique of the demonic bull power. The old man even asks if the protagonist is sure about this, but he is determined and says that is indeed what he wants. The old man warns the protagonist not to waste all his effort, mentioning that this technique costs a large amount of contribution points and is quite difficult to learn. He even asks how the protagonist will manage to comprehend it, but the protagonist asks him not to worry. The old man is shaken and says that since the protagonist does not want to listen to the words of an old elder now, later Yifan will surely suffer a great loss. Yifan takes the technique and thinks that his cultivation has increased, and now he can acquire a new martial art. Sometime later, in the talisman hall of the sacred land of the 5 elements, the protagonist is there pestering another guy, asking for various things. The guy wonders how the protagonist managed to have so many contribution points. At the spiritual weapons pavilion of the sacred land of the 5 elements, the protagonist asks another elder to pack up the weapons from half an entire wall for him. The elder can hardly believe it, but does as the protagonist requested. Yifan takes a sword and sees that it is a good weapon. He thinks it is a good time to buy good equipment. As he was leaving, everyone was talking about him. They said they heard that the protagonist emptied the talisman hall in the spiritual weapons pavilion and even obtained a legendary weapon, the demon-suppressing sword. People wonder how many contribution points Yifan has. And the protagonist leaves there happy. After night falls, at the back of the mountain of the sacred land of the 5 elements, the protagonist is there, and thinks that this simplified version of the demonic bull power technique mentions that to practice this technique, it is necessary to try to make the meridians absorb a large amount of blood essence from spiritual beasts of the bull type. Therefore, the protagonist is applying bull blood to his skin. After doing that, he needs to strengthen himself with a massive amount of physical exercise to transform the essence into the martial artist's own strength. Then Yifan throws a stone at the bats. With that, they fly after the protagonist. He uses this to train his reflexes and speed. A bat tries to attack him but is hit in the mouth. The bat is thrown against another bat, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Yifan has barely started and can already feel his meridians burning. With the help of the bull, the protagonist's body has already gained the strength equivalent to 30 horses. Suddenly, the protagonist stops and tests his new ability. He throws a punch that sends a blast against the bats. All are instantly killed. With that, the protagonist successfully masters the demonic bull technique. But at this moment, the protagonist senses a strange energy nearby. At the top of a peak, someone tells a hidden person to come out. The hooded one asks the other, who is hidden, to say what he wants quickly, as he doesn't have much time. Suddenly, a portal appears in the air, and a voice says that it is indeed very difficult to talk to the hooded one and calls him an old friend. This voice continues, saying that the hooded one has been working undercover in the sacred land of the 5 elements for many years and is acting more and more like a human. Suddenly, a demon king emerges from the portal. This is the demon king of the reverse wheel. The king asks if the hooded one has forgotten his identity as the demon king of the eternal hate demon sect. The hooded one shouts, asking the king to stop joking. He asks if the king contacted him using the transmission talisman because of the incident where the great demon king of despair was killed, and what the eternal darkness demon sect intends to do about it. Meanwhile, the protagonist is watching everything and already realizes that there is a demon spy here in the sacred land of the 5 elements. The king shouts, cursing Zhang, as she has been cornering and attacking the demons more than 100 times since she became a true disciple. Now, even the great demon king of despair lost his life at her hands. Therefore, the king wants to get rid of her as soon as possible to please the demon god. The protagonist wonders who this demon god is. The hooded one asks the king if he wants to kill Zhang. He explains that Zhang is the holy maiden of the sacred land of the 5 elements, the first true disciple of the wood sect. If the king dares to attack her within the sacred land, it will turn bad for him. He asks if the king is not afraid of provoking another war between humans and demons. The king says that's why he called the hooded one there, because the hooded one will probably have a better idea. The hooded one says that in 3 days, the outer disciples will take a test for the spiritual medicinal garden, and Elder Yunsong will be one of those responsible. But this year it seems that the responsibility will be given to Jiang. If she makes a mistake there, she will be sent to the Ghost Sorrow Cliff as punishment. The security there is lax, and it would be much easier to make her disappear. The king thinks this is a good idea. He says he will get some spiritual herbs for the occasion, while the hooded one thinks of a way to place them in the valley to attract some elite disciples there. The king asks if it would be a good idea to place a spiritual beast there to kill them all. The hooded one says it is indeed a good idea. As he was leaving, the king says that if all the elite talented disciples of the sacred land of the 5 elements die, it will be hard for Zhang not to be held responsible for it. Meanwhile, the protagonist was listening to their entire plan. Yifan thinks he has to do something about it quickly, but suddenly the hooded one attacks the protagonist, having seen movement in the forest. The protagonist realizes they sensed his presence. The attack explodes everything where the protagonist was, but no one was there. The hooded one thinks he was being paranoid. He uses a technique to sense the presence of someone within a kilometer area but does not sense anything nearby. So the hooded one decides to leave there as quickly as possible. Shortly after, the protagonist returns to this world. Luckily, he did not use the ring to go to Earth today, as he was almost killed by a hair's breadth. Yifan thinks that the demon race people are trying hard to kill Zhang, and he cannot let that happen. However, the protagonist has no evidence at the moment. If he reports this without thinking it through, he might alert the infiltrated enemy. Also, an outer disciple overheard a conversation between great venerable demons and survived. No one will believe that, but this issue cannot be left alone. The only way now is for Yifan to go to the spiritual medicinal garden personally and investigate this. 3 days later, at the spiritual medicinal garden, several disciples are there. The protagonist and the others arrive there too. Shin sees that there are many people there, and they are all very excited, but this was obvious, because if someone performs well in this test, they will have the opportunity to be recognized by one of the elders, and perhaps even be promoted to an inner disciple. Therefore, everyone is excited. Suddenly, a guy arrives asking everyone to get out of the way. A bearded disciple says that this is Changfeng, and not only him, but also Wang, Xiaojia, Min, and Yuan Bai. Shin explains that these 5 are the best among all the outer disciples, and have already been pre-accepted by the 5 inner courts of the sect. As soon as they advance to the divine mystic spirit realm, they will be immediately admitted to the sect's inner court. Yifan thinks this must be the group the Demon King and the hooded one we're talking about. He asks Shun if she knows anything about the demon race. She explains that the demon race has been hostile to the human race since time immemorial. Unlike their cultivation, which is by realms, demons are simply and roughly divided from top to bottom according to their level of combat power. First comes the Demon God, then Demon Emperor, Venerable Demon, Demon King, Demon Commander, and lastly Demon Soldiers. The Demon God is the supreme leader of the demon race, and he is the only one of his kind. It is said that he is so powerful that no one can escape from him alive, and no one has ever seen his true face. Below the Demon God, there are 7 main demon sects, named Eternal Death Demon Sect, Sun and Moon Demon Sect, Eternal Hate Demon Sect, Shura Demon Sect, Red Lust Demon Sect, White Skeleton Demon Sect, and Shadow Demon Sect. They are all addicted to killing and committing all kinds of evil. They are the greatest threat to the human race. Yifan thinks that this issue is going to be quite troublesome. Suddenly, Zhang arrives and calls for silence. She explains that she will be responsible for this year's test and asks everyone to follow the rules. All the disciples are impressed by her beauty. Zhang says that she has 3 things to mention. First, the test encourages fighting, but killing is not allowed. Especially disciples of the profound purple realm are not permitted to act against those in the marrow cleansing realm and the illumination realm. Second, the test will last 7 days and no one is allowed to stay behind after the test ends. Third, the collected herbs must be placed in the travel backpack and can only be kept after registration when the test is finished. She continues, saying that if any of the 3 rules are violated, they will be punished according to the sect's rules, and with that, the test begins, and everyone heads to the portal. The protagonist and Leo waste no time and enter the portal immediately. Upon entering, the protagonist feels a rich aura around him. He looks around and thinks he entered with his friends, but he is the only one there. The protagonist remembers that Leo mentioned that the spiritual medicinal garden was opened by an ancient ancestor of the sacred land of the 5 elements, with supreme divine power, and it spans hundreds of miles. The deeper one goes, the greater the chances of encountering spiritual herbs. But the demonic beasts inhabiting there are much more dangerous. At that moment, Yifan hears something approaching, and suddenly, 3 giant snakes appear attacking him. He takes his legendary sword and slices the snakes into pieces. These snakes were stone pythons, a grade 4 demonic beast, which could be a problem for a weaker disciple, but for the protagonist, they are no threat. Yifan wonders where the spiritual beast that the Demon King mentioned is, but he decides to forget about it and move forward. Just ahead, he hears someone calling for help. A girl is being cornered by 2 guys. She begs them to leave her alone as they have already taken everything she had. These 2 are Gao and Tang. Gao continues to corner the girl, attempting to do indecent things. Tang urges Gao to hurry up to avoid attracting attention, but Gao invites Tang to join in. Tang thanks him and starts to undress until suddenly a stone hits the heads of both. They wonder who did it, and the protagonist appears with another stone in hand. The girl asks Yifan for help. Gao is already furious with the protagonist, recalling their Yifan stares at Gao and says that he is already a defeated man, and now the protagonist is too lazy to beat him again. Yifan tells Gao to leave on his own, or he will break his legs, and Gao will have to crawl out of there. Gao gets angrier and asks the protagonist if he thinks he is the same as before because after losing, Gao cultivated a lot and managed to advance to the peak of the cultivation realm. He attacks the protagonist, but Yifan stops his attack with just 1 finger. Yifan asks if that's all Gao has, and Gao trembles with fear and cannot believe this is possible. He realizes that the protagonist is thousands of times stronger than before. Yifan says he will warn him one last time. If he sees Gao bullying the weaker ones again, he will kill him. Yifan flicks Gao's forehead, sending him flying far away. The protagonist cleans his hand after hitting Gao, as Gao is a disgusting guy. Tung is already in shock and asks what Yifan intends to do. He uses the blood barrier and warns the protagonist that his sister is already an inner disciple and will soon become an elder of the sacred land in the future. Therefore, the protagonist should respect him. But Yifan simply advances and punches Tung, asking if he is threatening him. Lying on the ground, Tung realizes that with just one blow, his organs were damaged. And now the protagonist is even more terrifying. The protagonist asks if being an inner disciple is that good. Yifan says he will send Tung to a place to cool his head. The protagonist gives a kick that sends him flying into a lake. He takes the treasures from Gao and Ting and says that now, everything belongs to him. The girl thanks Yifan for saving her. He replies that it was nothing and asks if she is hurt. Yifan hands her some medicinal herbs and asks her to heal her injuries. When she sees them, she immediately recognizes what they are. Rare, mystical, ice spirit grasses. She asks if the protagonist really wants to give them to her, but when the protagonist looks at her, her neckline is quite low. He turns his face out of respect and warns her that a lot is showing. He says that these herbs are common and not useful to him. He needs to find higher level herbs. With this, the chapter ends here. I hope that you liked today's video, and if you did, hit that like button as today's like goal is 100 likes. Comment next part down below for the next part. Also, consider subscribing with the notification bell on to get notified as soon as a new video drops onto the channel. I'll meet you in the next video. Until then, thanks for watching.